All right. You ready? Matthew 18. Everybody good? Good. All right. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and said, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven," or the kingdom of the heavens? Now, why in the world would they want to know that? What's the point of finding that out? Who is the greatest, the megas in the Greek, the greatest in the kingdom of the heavens? Why would they want to know that? Say it again. Pecking order. Okay. So are they asking for themselves? Are they looking around going, which of us is the greatest in the kingdom? Where do you see that? Are you reading between the lines, or are you seeing that in the text? There you go. So you're reading between the lines. Okay. Because there's been two other times Jesus talks about in the Sermon on the Mount, those of you that follow the commands or don't follow the commands, that determines sort of the least in the kingdom, greatest in the kingdom, that kind of thing. And then John the Baptist. What does Jesus say about John the Baptist? He was the greatest of what? Of those born of women, he is the greatest. But yet he is, even the least in the kingdom is greater than him. All right? So there's this idea that's floating around there. And yeah, the disciples do argue over who's the greatest. All right? I don't know if they were so bold as say greatest in all of the kingdom. All right? Because then you're putting yourself up against who? You know, you're a stinky fisherman, probably maybe in your mid-20s, and you're going, I'm better than Moses. I got Moses. I totally got Moses. All right? Elijah, maybe. All right? I don't know. David's up there. All right? But me, Peter, yeah. Man, I can fish and ask really bad questions. All right? So, but again, we don't know they're asking for themselves, but how does Jesus respond? Always watch how Jesus responds, because does he answer their question? No. All right? Verse 2, then he called parakaleo, all right, to proskaleo, to bring someone toward him, to invite someone to come. He called a child, all right, and this is the word paideon, all right, paideon. In Matthew's gospel, Matthew talks in Matthew 2 about Jesus as an infant, right? So how many times do we see Jesus as an infant? We have the birth, we have the dreams that come back and forth. We have the wise men showing up. We have Herod wanting to know where the child is. Go kill the child. How old was Herod killing kids? 2 and under. Okay, and it's used, Matthew 2 is used throughout Matthew 2. This word paideon is used over and over and over. So it's not implying this old child, okay? It's referring to a small child, a relatively small child, all right? So he called a child to him. That's not in the text, but that's okay. And had him, or placed him, set him in place. Where? What does your text say? Among them. Among whom? The disciples. Okay, so get the dynamic of this. So the disciples come to Jesus, all right? Do they come in a straight line? Do they come in a wad? What do they come in? Not yet. They come to Jesus, how? And how do they talk? When they ask him the question, give me your sense of group dynamic here. How are they standing? Are they in a straight line? Single file line? No. How are they standing? All right, yeah, I mean, kind of like y'all are here, all right? You guys come up, if the disciples come up to Jesus, they're all kind of in this little, I call it a wad, okay? A semicircle, maybe, okay? So I want you, again, because you have to get the dynamics, because what Jesus does is so cool. They ask, and who do you think asks? It's always Peter, all right? We don't know. You always want to go to Peter. Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And I think Jesus picks up on this little ambitious note here. So he calls this child, this paideon, this child, I mean literally a child, all right? Sort of Trey, your girl's age, all right? You're probably Alan's age, all right? And had him placed this kid where? Which says, among them. In Greek, it's in mesos, all right? Mesos is in the middle, all right? Mesopotamia is in between the rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, is Meso, right, middle, Potamia, okay? So imagine this. I mean, you're Jesus, and your disciples come up. They're sort of in front of you, sort of in a staggered, whatever it is. And they go, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Jesus goes, hey, come here, Sparky. All right? Little 4, 5, 6-year-old, maybe, who knows? Here. And he literally, the verbiage here is he placed them, histemi. He set this kid in place. Where? In the middle of them. Does he answer the question? What are they thinking in this moment? They ask, who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus answers, how? Come here, Sparky. Just stand in the middle of them. How are they feeling at this point? Are they going, why in the world would Jesus put a little child in the middle of us when we ask the question of who's the greatest? Do you think they got it, though? You just never know with the disciples, all right? Or with us a lot of times, all right? But he puts this child in the middle. I mean, literally, okay, you got Peter, Andrew, James, John, Sparky, all right? And then you got the rest of them, okay? I assure you, he said, unless you are converted, I don't like this word, unless you might be turned. It's strepho, which means to turn. Unless you turn, all right? A lot of times we get this word repent from this, all right? But this is more of a sort of a turn away from what you're doing and turn to something else. And become like this child, all right? Or these children, or children like this. Then you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child, this one is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And they responded how? Oh. I don't think so at all. I think they're totally confused. They're like, what does that mean? How do we do that? And that's what the question kind of because you got to love Jesus, because when he's asked a very specific question, how does he answer it? In a very confusing way. in a way that makes you not go, oh, now I see the answer. It's, oh, that's another question. That leads to another question, which leads to another question. Because you got to ask yourself, what does a little child do that I don't do? And parents, you've dealt with this. You've been there. You've seen this. You'll see this soon. All right? What is the characteristics of this child? What is the faith of this child? And it says whoever humbles himself. It's the Greek word tapiainos, which means literally to be a poor beggar type person with no means of providing and protecting for yourself. So unless whoever humbles himself like a child, this one is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Now, unless you convert and become like children, you're never getting in. And then whoever humbles himself like this child, this one is the greatest. And whoever welcomes one child like this in my name welcomes me. Now, they've got a lot to think about, all right? So Sparky's standing there in the middle of me, and they're thinking, okay, what do I need to do to become like this little child? What does Jesus see in this child that he needs to see in me? And so if I become like this child, I will be in the kingdom of heaven. That's step one, all right? And therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is, maybe you want to add that word to it, this one is the greatest. So what's the answer to the question? Is it to do bold, amazing things? What's the child done? Nothing, except what happens? Jesus said, come here. And what did he do? Okay. And I think Jesus wanted to see them do that, because how many times does Jesus tell the disciples to do something and it's like, how many times does God tell us to do something and we go, But this child, can it really be that simple? Jesus calls, I go. Can it really be that simple? Now, I think it can be that simple, but it's a profound lifestyle to live in that immediate obedience. All right? Now, verse 5, this gets interesting. Because Jesus is going to pick on Sparky here and be like, okay, see Sparky right here? We got to be careful with him, okay? Whoever welcomes, all right, this word welcomes, we've talked about this word a lot. To take something is lambano. To welcome someone is dekomai, okay? We've said it before. Pizza man comes to your house, you lambano the pizza from him, okay? You just, thank you for the pizza, here's your money, go away, okay? Grandma comes to the house, and what do? Grandma, come on in. Welcome, dekomai, all right? See the difference? Okay, so there's this difference between just the casual idea of taking something and the idea of welcoming something. So what happened when Jesus, they approach him, they're in front of him, who's the greatest? Jesus turns, sees the child, and says, come here, and he puts him right there in their midst. What do the 12 do in that moment? What did they do? Again, it's not in the text, don't look at your Bible. All right, and don't look down so you avoid eye contact with me, okay? I taught long enough. I know how this works, all right? What do? What did they do with this little Paideon child? How many of them went, oh, come here, buddy, you sit next to me. Come here, I'll, because you know what they're going to do in the next chapter? When the little children, the little Paideons, wanted to come to Jesus, what do the disciples do with them? He just said a chapter earlier, whoever welcomes, dekomai, warmly welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes who? Me. Doesn't this sound like the sheep and the goats? Why am I a sheep? Why am I not a goat? Well, because the least of these. You ministered to the least of these, and in so doing, you ministered to me. Same principle here. So I just wonder, how did they receive this little child that was obedient to Jesus? All right? It's a great test. It's a great test. Whoever welcomes one child like this in my name welcomes me. All right? But whoever, and here's the contrast. So welcoming versus this. But whoever causes the downfall. Does anybody have a different word in their text? Causes the downfall? Does it say cause to sin? Okay. It's the Greek word scandalizo. All right? We get our word scandalize. All right? So you cause this one's downfall. You scandalize this one. One of these little ones. All right? Now he's referring to sort of the mikros. All right? One of these mikros who believes or who is believing into me. And I love the way he says believes into. We've said it before. You can believe in Jesus or you can believe into Jesus. You can believe in the ability of a shark cage to keep you safe, or you can believe your butt into the shark cage and see what happens. There's a whole different life between the one on the dock believing in the shark cage and the one who believes into the shark cage. And John does this all the time. Almost every time he uses the word believe, it's always believe into, not just believe in. Because a lot of church folk believe in, right? How many believe into? They're the ones living it. They're the ones living the Christian life, all right? So whoever causes the downfall or scandalizes one of these little ones who is believing into me, it would be better for him if a heavy millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depths of the sea. Now what are they doing with Sparky? If you welcome him, you welcome me. And if you cause him to downfall, we're going to hang a millstone around you and throw you in the sea. Now what are they adjusting on the fly here? Or are they still standing there with Sparky just all by himself, feeling awkward? What would you do? Would you adjust? Would you go, come here, buddy? You can yeah, put him on your shoulders, all right? Give him some candy. I don't know what you're going to do with him, but I mean, or would you just sit there and just go, oh, Jesus is teaching us. We'll be reverent and pay attention. Or would you adjust? Would you do that, all right? 7, woe to the world, oy vey, woe to the world because of offenses, because of scandalizo, all right? For scandalized offenses must come, but woe to that man by whom the offense comes. And he says this, if your hand or your foot causes your downfall, causes you to be scandalized, causes you to sin, all right? Do what with it? cut it off. Cut it off and then do what with it? Throw it away, all right? Balo, throw it, toss it. For it is better, kalos. It is more excellent. It's more excellent for you to enter into life, maimed or lame, than to have 2 hands or 2 feet and be thrown into the eternal fire. Now, these are some serious consequences he's dealing with here, right? All right? Now, he's just dealt with the idea of this kid sitting in the midst of them. Don't cause him to sin, but here he turns it on themselves. And he says, now, don't you dare cause this little one to sin, or a millstone will be hung around your neck. But you need to be careful of your causing your own self to commit sin. If your hand or your foot causes you to commit your own sin and to cause your own downfall, what kind of measure should you take? How drastic is this? It is pretty drastic. Somebody asked me one time, you think Jesus was being serious when he said this? I said, yeah, I do. And they said, well, do you think I should cut off my hand if it's causing me to sin? I said, yes, you should. They go, oh, I don't think that's... I go, well, you don't take your sin very seriously then. How seriously do we take our sin? I think this is a pretty good test. That I would rather cut off my hand than do this ever again. What does it say when you go, oh,